5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Common Man's Take on Sports with Kevin and Quentin.
All right, Quentin. Got another episode going here. I think I want to talk about some NFL since tonight is the season opener for Baltimore and Kansas City, if I'm not mistaken, is the game tonight.
Yep.
So let's talk about a few of the games that are happening this weekend. And I know that tonight's game is kind of a rematch of the AFC Championship game that happened last year. I know both of these teams are a little different from what they were last year. So let's kind of talk about that and who we think is going to win tonight. So I'll let you go ahead and get it started.
Okay. You know what? I actually have some faith in the Ravens. Because
Oh, that's funny because right before this podcast started, you were singing the Kansas City Chiefs praise, saying they were going to win. What happened? Your mind changed all of a sudden?
yeah, I forgot that. So the Chiefs signed Hollywood Brown this offseason, and I forgot that he was out for this game.
Yeah, but didn't they get that kid from Texas, Xavier Worthy?
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of the only wide receiver Patrick Mahomes has, to be honest.
Don't they have Rice from last year? Rasheed Rice?
Yeah.
Rice?
Yeah.
He kind of came on there towards the end and in some of those playoff games, if I'm not mistaken. So they still have him.
I'm also have some faith in the Ravens because, they signed Derrick Henry,
So they did make some big moves. I think the Derrick Henry move was huge for them because I believe he's going to fit what the Ravens do. I agree with you there.
Yeah, I've been wanting to see all this offseason Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and how that will fare. Especially since, Derrick Henry is a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, I do agree. I think that Derrick Henry move is probably a really big move for the Ravens and a really great move for the Ravens. I feel like it's going to be a close game, but I don't know. I think I might pick the Ravens. I would pick the Ravens to win, absolutely, but they've lost key defensive players. They lost their defense coordinator, Mike McDonald. They lost Geno Stone, I think he led the NFL in interceptions last year.
Yeah, safety, yep.
Yeah, he was a really good safety last year. He took a step forward last year. And then Patrick Queen was probably the biggest loss for them. Him and Roquan Smith together was a really good combo, really good pair.
Mm-hmm.
I really wish the Ravens would have kept him because that would have helped their defense here in this game a lot. But I'm picking I think it's going to be a really close game, but I'm picking the Chiefs to win by a field goal. Also because they're in Kansas City, and it's hard to play in Kansas City.
Yeah. Although I won't argue with you there, it is hard to play in Kansas City. I will point out that the season opener last year was Kansas City and Detroit Lions. We all know who won that game. Detroit Lions won, and that game was also in Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium. So let's not forget that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But, however, as I look at it, Patrick McQueen was a loss. But I do believe that they have a couple of people who can step in his place. They have Trenton Simpson, they drafted a couple of years ago from Clemson, who has been behind both Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen, I think he'll fill in nicely in the offseason. They had rave reviews about him. I think he'll be fine. I will say that I think Zay Flowers will take a step forward this year. I know in the NFC Championship game last year he made a couple of rookie mistakes. I think he learned from those, and I think he'll take a step forward. Mark Andrews is 100% healthy now. He wasn't in that game because if you don't forget, he got hurt early in the season last year. He hurt his ankle, and he didn't come back until that game. Like they were practicing for that game, so he had just come back, so he wasn't in game shape yet. So they have a fully healthy Mark Andrews in that game. Nelson Aguilar came back, who was a pretty solid target for Lamar last year. But also I think adding Derrick Henry was a huge add for them because, you know, everybody's going to be focused on Henry, right? Because what's Baltimore? Baltimore's a run-heavy team. They have been under John Harbaugh, and they're going to be, right? So everybody's going to be worried about Derrick Henry. So they're going to start out probably close to the line, stacking the box a little, you know, wait for them to hand the ball off to Henry. And so this is where it becomes interesting, because when you devote that much to one player, you know, does that open Lamar up for more breakaway runs? Because don't forget how athletic he is, and they run an RPO, and he keeps that ball, and they don't read that. Man, you know, you got Lamar for 30, 40-yard game because you're focused on Derrick Henry, and everybody's tackling Derrick Henry because we all know that one person isn't tackling Derrick Henry by themselves, right? He's usually a gang tackle for most teams. He doesn't go down easy. So I think that helps them having Henry. But the defense, I'm not worried about the Ravens' defense. They've been solid, and they've rotated out defensive coordinators a few times here in the recent past, and so they've managed to replace them with people already on the staff, which, if I'm not mistaken, the person that they promoted was internal, so he already knows the system more than likely, and they're probably going to run the same system basically they ran last year with maybe a few different, you know, play calls or what have you. But for the most part, I think their defense is going to be the same. You get a healthy Marlon Humphrey back. He had injury problems last year. He's back and healthy. They got that great draft pick out of Clemson, Nate Wiggins, who I think is going to have a big impact this year. I know I just tilted my hand, but man, I'm leaning Ravens. I think Ravens take this. I think this is a preview for the AFC Championship right now as it stands. Now somebody in the East or AFC may step up and compete with these two teams, but for me, right now, I believe this is going to be preview the AFC Championship game again, Baltimore and Kansas City. And I think Baltimore takes this one. That doesn't mean I think they're going to take the AFC Championship game if they make it there again, because Kansas City always shows up in the big games like that in the playoffs. Playoffs are a different story, but I think Baltimore takes the game in Arrowhead tonight. I think Derrick Henry has a big game. I think Lamar has a big game. And David Ojabo should get some run this year. He's back and fully healthy and a go. And we'll see if Oweh can take that step forward. Their interior is good. It's been good for a while. So I'm not worried about the defense. They have a lot of good defensive players. I'm sure that they got a viable safety to replace Geno Stone. Let's just look across their list here. They got Eddie Jackson. They signed Eddie Jackson. I think he'll be a fine replacement for Geno Stone.
I forgot about him.
So I think they'll be fine. They have a few safeties on the list. Don't forget about Kyle Hampton, who had a big year last year. They also have Darius Washington out there too, who can play safety, and Marcus Williams. So not worried about Marcus Williams had some injury problems last year too. He's a good safety. They signed him last year. I'm not worried about their defense at all. And offense, I believe that Derrick Henry makes their offense better this year. So I think they're going to be just fine. Kansas City is the one that I have the concern about because I'll have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure nobody has three-peated for an NFL Super Bowl because it's so hard to three-peat. So I think Kansas City have a bit of a drop-off this year. I'm not saying they might not recover from it, but I think they have a bit of a drop-off. So my pick is Baltimore all the way.
Okay, I think I'm going to change my pick.
Go ahead.
Because I'm looking at the Ravens depth chart and I forgot about a lot of key players. Eddie Jackson came and plays Geno Stone. I agree with that. I think Kyle Van Noy can replace Patrick Queen. Because I was looking at his stats, 9 sacks last season. Wasn't really good at tackles, but 9 sacks. He had 20 tackles last season, but 9 sacks. So, I think David Ojabo will have a pretty good year this year. I think he'll have a pretty good year. I think he'll get some playing time. With Mark Andrews healthy, that's a plus for Ravens. But they've also lost some offensive line. But I don't think it will affect them by much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm picking the Ravens to win this one.
I believe that's a good pick. I think the Ravens will win tonight. Season opener, I think they'll take it there. I could be wrong, but I think they will. Tomorrow's another game. Green Bay Packers and Philadelphia Eagles. So I'm excited to see that one too. If I had to take my pick, I would say the Eagles are probably going to win that one because the Eagles are fully healthy. They've made some additions also. They picked up Saquon Barkley in the offseason. They have they've drafted several good defensive players through the draft the last couple of years to replace what they lost. I think they're going to be just fine. I think Philly takes this one against Green Bay. Let's see, where is that game being played?
I think it's being played in Brazil.
It is being played in Brazil. You are correct. So Jalen Hurts is going to be back. He's a good quarterback. You pair him with Saquon Barkley. I think that Saquon gives Jalen Hurts a running back he hasn't had yet. A very viable option because Barkley is one of those guys who not only can line up, in the backfield, but you can line him up in the backfield and then break him out wide. He's got great hands. He can catch the ball like a receiver. He can run routes. So I think that gives Jalen Hurts something he hasn't had recently. So I think Philly wins that one. I like Philadelphia this year. I think they're going to be a good team. If I had to pick a few teams that I think are going to be good this year without seeing anybody play yet, let's start. I think the Eagles are going to be good in a player in the NFC. I think that the 49ers are going to be good over in the NFC. I think they're going to be just fine. I think everybody's talking about can Detroit repeat their success from last year. I believe they can because they didn't hardly lose anything. They lost a little bit of their secondary, but their secondary was the weakest part of their defense last year. I think they've replaced those players with some solid players, and they also got DJ Reader at a very decent price to pair with Elaine McNeil on that defensive line. As long as DJ Reader stays healthy, I think he's going to be a fine addition to that defense. And it'll probably prevent people from double teaming Hutch a lot. And Aiden Hutchinson should have another great year this year. I think Detroit's going to be a playoff team and a problem over in the NFC. That's probably my top teams in NFC. AFC, Ravens and Chiefs. Bills I'm not so sure about because they lost a lot. They lost Diggs. They lost some other players. We'll see how well they do I think with a healthy Joe Burrow, Bengals will probably be tough. I think Jaguars will be a little bit better this year in AFC. That's my AFC picks as far as the top teams. Again, everybody's riding on the Jets because of Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is past his prime. And even if he plays a full season, I just don't think that it's going to be. I think the Jets are going to be what everybody thinks they're going to be.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's been talking about the Jets.
Oh,
How I
Aaron
think
Rodgers makes them a Super Bowl contender. I know. I know. I've heard it all too.
Yeah, and they're wrong. I think the Jets will just have the same result as last season because Aaron Rodgers, he's getting old, and I think he's out of his prime now.
I agree.
I don't think he'll have I think he'll have an okay season this year, but not very good.
I think so too. And I think they could possibly be a playoff team, but I just don't think they're a Super Bowl team based off of him being healthy alone. I just don't see it. I don't see what everybody sees. Plus, they got the Niners in week 1, so if he survives that without injury, I'd be surprised. Because remember, it was first play of the game last year, sack, and he's hurt, and he's out the whole year. So he's not as durable as he used to be either. He's had several injury issues last year, going back to his last few years in Green Bay also. So I don't think he's as durable as he used to be. I'm not sold on the Steelers and their 3-headed quarterback there with Fields, Wilson, and was Pickett still there?
No, they was traded to the Eagles.
Sheesh. I'm just not buying the Steelers.
Me neither. I'm not really buying the Steelers. I don't think the Steelers will have any success this season. I don't think Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields should just have the same result as last year. He's an overrated quarterback. Russell Wilson is. I think Russell Wilson's out of his prime now. I mean, when he was at Denver, it was just. He wasn't very good. I don't think he'll be very good with the Steelers either. I just don't.
Let me jump back to one more AFC team I forgot about, the Texans. I do think the Texans will be pretty good again this year. Actually, I think they'll be a little bit better. Super Bowl contender, I'm not sure, but I think they will be better. If I'm not mistaken, they're the ones who picked up Stephon Diggs, aren't they?
Yes.
And who else did they get?
Oh,
they got a running back, didn't they?
Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon, there you go. So that's 2 solid, very, very solid pickups for them. C.J. Stroud already looked like a good quarterback. Him and Nico Collins had a lot of rapport together. So I think you just added, Diggs, which helps that. And then you added Joe Mixon, which gives them a good running game. Because Joe Mixon's been very, very solid in Cincinnati since he's been there. So I actually think that boosts Houston a little bit. And again, I don't know if they're a Super Bowl, but definitely a playoff contender. I think they have an opportunity to make it out of the first round this year.
They also picked up Danielle Hunter. They've also picked up some defensive. They also picked up a defensive player. Derek Stingley, I think he's a really good
Derek
player.
Stingley Jr. Yep, you're
He's
right.
a really good player. He had a breakout season last year.
Was he on their team last year?
Yes. He had
That's
five picks last year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
That was
Great player.
yeah. So I think he'll have an even better year this year. And plus they had Danielle Hunter. That just gives their front four some help. It gives Will Anderson Jr. some help. And then the fact that they have Stephon Diggs just gives another option for C.J. Stroud, because last year he kind of only had like Tank Dell and Nico Collins, but now he's got Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins. So I think those two will be some really good key wide receivers for him this year. Plus he has a running back that he can hand it off to, Joe Mixon. is a good running back. So I think the Texans. I agree with you. I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders yet, but I think they could at least.
I think they're trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I think they could at least maybe make the AFC Championship game, at least with the amount of talent they have. Yeah, the amount of talent they have, I think they can.
Very, very solid possibility.
Yep.
So yeah, that's it's a good, very good pick. I don't have any arguments for that. Those are the teams that I think will stand out this year. Obviously, there could be a few more that step up, but I just don't, at this point in the season, I don't see it. Maybe as the season goes along, some other teams will separate themselves. The Dolphins have an opportunity to, but I don't know if they will. We'll see what happens as far as that goes, but those are my teams. Obviously, the Patriots are still rebuilding, so they're not going to be, up there. It's just Buffalo's the one that I'm not sure, with the losses and the turnover. Like I don't know what they're going to look like this year. They have been a solid team the last few years, but I don't know what they're going to look like this year.
Yeah, they've.
We'll have to wait and see with them.
I mean, they lost Stephon Diggs. They lost a lot of key players. They lost some defense too. They've lost some defense, some good defensive players, and they've also lost some. They also lost Stephon Diggs. So I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bills might not even win the AFC East this year, with how many losses they've got. I don't. They might not even win the division.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. That is a possibility. So, that'll wrap our show up for today. We will do our podcast on some of the college games tomorrow, and the games we're excited to see and talk a little bit about them. You guys have a good night. Thank you for listening, and see you next time on the Common Man's Take on Sports with Kevin
And Quentin.